So record to cloud, screen share. So in my breakdown this morning, I'm training with one of the blue belts from up at the academy. I believe her name is Heidi. Going to go through a lot of different things this morning, it looks like, based on the role. We're not going to have the same luxury that I had with Hayden in Tuesday's class, where it was pretty much just one topic that we could hammer home the entire time, which is really helpful, I think. But nonetheless, I still think you guys will get a lot out of this. Let's keep going. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Oh, I forgot to mute you guys. If you guys want to mute yourselves, and then if you have questions, go ahead and unmute yourself. All right, the round's starting here. Heidi comes in. And she's trying to circle around me, and I'm always keeping my feet pointed at her. I know it seems like a really simple lesson, but important, that as she moves around, I continue to track her. And there I pummel my feet back to the inside. I'll drop and show that again really quick. So she tries to control my knees, so I pummel my feet back to the inside. She goes hands on knees. I don't like the fact that she can take my knees and start throwing them around whichever way. So I'm going to leg pummel inside of her biceps best I can. And then she drops in, grabs a double under and throws them by. Now there's a fight going on right here. Okay, this is an important fight. I'm trying to stop her from controlling my head. She's gotten past my legs, but until she can control my head, it's going to be hard for her to solidify the control in a meaningful way. I'm using an inside bicep tie here, so that's the fight, trying to deny head control. And Heidi ultimately wins that fight. She's able to strip my inside bicep tie by extending her right arm out over her head there. So I lose the inside bicep tie, she gets head control, and she solidifies the position. Now, she got my head control, but she didn't get the underhook on the far side. So here you guys see I'm starting to come in with my right underhook. What do you guys remember from previous classes about when the bottom person can get the far side underhook? What will that allow the bottom person to do? Or what does it not allow the top person to do, if that's another way to think about it?
Stop you from getting their back.
Going toward the back, absolutely. If I have an underhook, I can start to go toward the back. But in order for me to even start going toward the back, I have to be able to get up on my side here. So that's, again, that's one of the big things with this underhook. If Heidi has the underhook here, her chest is in front of my shoulder, and she can drive her chest into my shoulder to keep that shoulder flat. When I have the underhook, you guys see now I can use that to move her body out of the way of my shoulder. And now she doesn't have the same ability to drive that shoulder flat. So once again, in my opinion, in my belief, this underhook determines whether or not the bottom person can turn into you or not. Because I got the underhook, I'm going to be able to turn into Heidi. And I generally like to come up on single legs from this scenario. So make sure you guys understand that, write that down if you need to. But from the bottom position, if you can get an underhook, you're going to want to look to start back heisting into your opponent, getting to your knees to a good athletic position, and then fighting from there. We're going to look at the back heist as one of our solo drills today. And there I took my back heist to single leg right into cross Asha gourami, and I believe I do that again later in the round too. So if you guys want to watch that exchange and log that away in your mind quick, because you guys are going to see that again. So because I do it twice in one round, it must be a relatively good entry here. I step behind her leg. I start walking behind. When she turns to face me, that leg is available for me to fall back on. So again, she's trying to control my knees, so I pummel my feet to the inside position. So she did something good in response to that. I don't know if you guys recognize the importance of it or not. So here, Heidi puts her hand on my knees, trying to throw my knees to one side or the other. When she grabs my knees, I'm almost always going to have the ability to pummel my feet back to an inside position and point my feet back at her. So that's the problem with controlling the knees. Heidi recognizes this. So what do you guys think might be a better way to start? If it's not controlling the knees, because that allows me to pummel my feet back to the inside, what else could Heidi maybe try to do?
Control your feet.
Control the feet. That is an awesome place to start in jiu-jitsu, to come down and control the ankles. These grips that Heidi has right here, I love these grips. I use these grips all the time. So the fact that she's grabbing the ankles and controlling the feet is going to allow her to start pointing the feet away from her. Okay, so now she was able to point the feet away. She got to a good angle. However, I'm denying chest exposure by keeping my right elbow and my right knee together. Okay, I've heard this referred to as building the wall before. You guys see there's a wall here made by my lower arm and my lower leg. At my school, based on all my studying, I call this a V frame, because we're framing against our opponent with our two limbs in the shape of a V, where we connect our knee and our elbow together. That is going to stop her from getting in chest to chest, and it's going to allow me to leg scissor. We talked about leg scissoring at length on Tuesday, and it's going to come up again today. So again, here I'm in a defensive cycle because she got to my hip. We talked about that on Tuesday. So I immediately frame with a V frame, and then I use that V frame to make enough space to bring my left leg back over. So that's our basic leg scissor action. We frame to allow us to bring the far leg back in. So now I have what's called a scissor guard. Guards usually function with one side of the body. Okay, in most cases, my left leg will control the right side of Heidi's body, and my right leg would control her left. In scissor guard, where I'm also doing the same thing, but it's just reversed. One leg controls one side of the body, but it's flipped. So this is typically what the position you'll find yourself in when you go into a leg scissor action to recover your guard. So with this leg scissor, it's tough for Heidi to get any sort of angle on me. She's still trapped between my legs. Now, once again, there's Heidi grabbing onto the knees. I'm framing. She passes to the other side. So let's talk about the importance of that as it relates to guard passing. Because what Heidi did is a really, really smart thing here. Right now, my knees, my feet, my frames, everything is pointing to my left-hand side. If Heidi tries to continue to pass to her right, to my left, she's going right into all of my defensive tools, all of my frames. So if you want to get good at guard passing, you're going to want to get away from where my frames are pointing. In this case, Heidi's going to want to go to her left. A simple phrase you guys can think about as it relates to guard passing is get your opponent's knees to point away from you. You can do this in one of two ways. Number one, and I'm going to ask you guys for what number two is, so pay attention to number one. Number one is you can take your opponent's knees and physically move your opponent's knees to point them away from you. Okay, so moving your opponent's knees is one option to get the knees to point away from you. What else could we do? What's another option to get the knees pointed away from you? Nick, do you have a guess? What was that, Greg?
Circle away, move behind.
Circle away. If you can't move the knees, Move yourself. Remember, the knees need to point away from you. So the two important factors here are the knees and you. You can move the knees or you can move yourself. So in this case, Heidi's going to move herself to the far side. That's a phenomenal way to think about passing guard. Now, this goes back to a previous lesson, a very previous lesson, like one of the first lessons we did. So now I'm in a situation where Heidi is circling around, passing my guard behind me. I'm on my side, facing away from her. Do you guys remember the two basic methods that I was talking about for this kind of scenario? If you don't worry, because it's been a while, but I want you to think about it for a minute. There are essentially two ways I can operate in regards to bringing something off the mat for body movement. I can bring my shoulders off the mat, or I can bring my hips off the mat. Remember? So in this case, I'm going to start by bringing my shoulders off the mat. But as I do that, I'm actually going to end up exposing my back to Heidi. So then I'm going to put my back down and bring my hips off the mat. Okay, you guys are going to see all this happen. If I want to bring my shoulders off the mat, I want to keep a frame in between me and Heidi. That frame would protect my back from her chest. In this video, you guys can see my frame has moved. I started off framing. I'm going to back it up a bit. So my right hand starts off framing. I have an elbow frame here near her shoulder. But as I try to come up, she postures up and I lose my frame. So now this is bad back exposure, okay? Here, my back is exposed, but as long as I keep a frame in between me and her, it's not so bad. But once my right arm, my frame, comes out, now this is a bad thing for me. So I'm going to respond to this by trying to hide my back and going into a shoulder roll. So in this scenario, bringing my shoulders off the mat didn't work. So I'm going to drop my shoulders and bring my hips off the mat. I'm going to go ahead and start. And I bring my hips off the mat. And this is a scenario where I put my hips in between my chest and my opponent's chest. We talked about denying chest exposure on Tuesday, and I had mentioned, hands, elbows, feet, and knees, those are all pretty easy to comprehend. But I'd also mentioned bringing hips in between my chest and my opponent's chest. And some of you, that might have confused some of you, because it's not easy to think about how would you bring your hips in between your chest and their chest. The action is a shoulder roll. So here, watch how I go into a rolling action, a shoulder roll, so that I can put my hips between my chest and her chest and deny her chest exposure. That action of putting my hips in between her chest and my chest saved me and allowed me to recover guard. Okay, so we're going to go into some side roll inversions later as some of our solo drills, and that's going to be based on this right here. So I'm going to show this again. I come up onto my left hand prop where I'm up on my left elbow. And now so I start by propping on the elbow and then I convert it into a shoulder roll. So that's something you guys can practice on your own at home. And I'll show you guys how to do that later. I have to move this window here. I can't see what's going on. There we go. Okay. So there I'm doing some fancier inverting stuff. I won't talk on that. That'd be really tough to try to break down. I don't think we have the time for that. And it's more complicated. I think it'd be tougher for you guys to comprehend unless you guys could actually do it. So during these breakdowns, I'm trying to go over simpler concepts. Just so you guys understand that. During these breakdowns, I'm trying to go over simpler concepts that you will be able to remember and recall even without having practiced things on your own, okay? So if I feel like something in here needs to be practiced in order to understand it, I probably won't talk about it. So now Heidi is going to smash my two knees together into a smash pass. This is a good way to pass guard. She's doing it with an arm weave right now. You can do it with a leg weave too. But this notion of when my two knees get smashed to one side, I've got a couple different ways that I like to defend guard here. I can either invert, which I'm going to do now, or I can frame and come up to an elbow prop. But let's talk about the inverting. My two knees get thrown to a side. Now, in order to invert, I need to bring my hips up over my shoulders, which means I need to be able to prop my hips up. And I'm going to do that with my left foot on the ground right here. If my feet weren't connected to the mat, I'd never be able to bring my hips up. But with this left foot on the mat, I can push my hips up, going into an inversion action to prevent the smash pass. And that's another example of trying to bring my hips in between her chest and my chest. Now Heidi's coming through at the knee. This is a great thing for her to do. She's going into a cross knee pass where she takes her knee into my cross hip, or a knee cut as it's commonly referred to. Now, as soon as she passes, okay, if you feel that a pass is impending and almost inevitable, you can think about preparing your escape while the pass is still happening. In this scenario, I'm going to use my left hand to punch in an underhook as Heidi passes. And as you guys now know, Nick, when I get an underhook, what does that mean I can do as the bottom person?
This means that you can now frame away, possibly, and you won't get put to your back.
I won't get put to my back. Yes, that one right there. If I have this underhook, once again, her chest is not in front of my left shoulder, so she can't drive and flatten this left shoulder out. Because I have an underhook, watch how I can move her body, clear my shoulder, and now that my shoulder's clear, I can back heist and come up into her. Guys, I mean, you saw it a few times. You're going to continue to see it in the future. You've seen it in the past. This underhook from side control is an incredibly important concept. If you haven't gotten this down yet, make sure you guys write this down and try to think about it on your own. Repeat it to yourselves. That underhook from bottom position, it's something both people want. If Heidi gets the underhook, she can keep me flat. If I can get the underhook, I can come up. It's broken down. It's fairly simple if you think about it like that. And there's that same scenario where I use that back heist into the single leg, into the cross ashi, same entrance there. So just the same thing I did 2 minutes ago. All right, back on the feet. Heidi's gonna try to control my wrists and come in. There's gonna be a number of different times where as Heidi shoots in, she willingly brings her own head below my armpit. Anytime the head comes below the armpit, you'll have an opportunity to enter into the front headlock. So here, Heidi gets into the front headlock, and she postures up high and circles around behind me, so that's good. Now from here, where's Heidi trying to bring me? Backward or forward? What do you think based on her body positioning? Look at how her body's angled.
Birds.
Backward.
She's trying to bring me backward. So if I'm getting pulled backward, I can offset that weight and power by trying to bring my weight forward. So I feel the backward power in my hips. So I immediately bend very far forward. I put my hands on the mat to counter her ability to pull me backward. That 4-point position is an incredibly strong structure. I haven't been using this for very long, but I've been using it more and more lately as a strong defensive posture, where I just put both hands and both feet on the mat. This is a very awkward position to try to attack. Now, there are attacks in this position, but many people are not very familiar with how to attack this. So I'll often use this as a temporary defensive position to help me recover into a better offensive position. So we're going to see Heidi bring her head below my armpit again. And this time I just finish a quick guillotine. So again, the front headlock based on a reactive entry because she brought her head below my armpit. Now she's going to do the same thing again. There I need to do a little bit of a snap, but the same thing. I was able to snap her head lower than my armpit to get a front headlock. Okay, now I'm going to show you guys something that I haven't been doing a ton. I mean, it's a lot of people know this, but it hasn't been a part of my game for a long time. And that's a hook sweep from this position. So I've already finished with I've already finished Heidi with a guillotine. I let her get behind me. So I keep trying to do something new just to keep working new skills. Here I'm going to use a hook sweep. So watch how I'm going to take my right foot and I'm going to hook it into her cross leg. Here. I'm lowering myself to the mat, pulling her head down with me so that her head comes lower than her hips. All right, that's another common theme we've talked about before. The importance for a person to keep their, especially if they're in the top position, their head higher than their hips. If I can pull her head lower than her hips, she becomes very unstable. I'm able to use that principle to use a good hook sweep. So with her head lower than her hips, I'm going to use my right leg to hook into her hips, up in her leg right here. And then I'm going to use my right leg to pull her hips over her head. So my right leg is actually pulling her forward with this hook. So I stand to pass guard. That's something I really like to do. Now Heidi did a really good thing here. I was trying to bring my left knee across her body into her left hip for the cross knee pass or the knee cut. Heidi recognized this and framed my knee away so that my knee did not get tight to the pocket of her hip. Very good thing for Heidi to do there. Never let somebody, if you guys are retaining guard, never let somebody control your hips. That's very bad. Don't let them get their arm, their leg, a foot, a hand, a knee, an elbow, anything, a shoulder tight to the hip. That usually spells bad news for you. Heidi did a good job avoiding that in this case. Now Heidi's doing a good job using a knee shield. I leg pummeled behind and I went into a stack pass attempt. Okay, now we talk a lot about leg pummeling, but this is going to be a unique style of leg pummeling that we haven't talked on yet. So I want you guys to watch this. Right now I'm trying to go into a cross knee pass, but I run into Heidi's knee shield. So watch how I'm going to transfer all of my body weight onto my right foot to unweight my left foot. My unweighted left foot will then be able to pummel inside of Heidi's right leg. So we're leg pummeling from the top position now. Okay, leg pummeling, again, super important. You guys have to be able to get your legs where you want to be able to get your legs. People don't think about the leg position enough, especially new grapplers. So Heidi does a good job framing me away there. Turns up and That was a really cool entry. So what I did there is I just saw an extended limb and I went after it with like a rolling Kimura attack. And in this case, I didn't even need to roll. I was just able to step behind her because she was so low. But here you guys see Heidi's defending her left arm well, but she's really reaching with this right arm. And because of that, I'm going to be able to go in and control it and use that to go into attacks. So now here I'm going to use a reverse top lock. You guys remember our top lock from the closed guard? How we brought the leg up on top of the shoulder from the front? Here, we're going to look at a rear top lock or reverse top lock, where I do the same thing to set up my attacks by bringing my leg over her shoulder first. So we have the rear top lock. And now I'm using my legs to separate her hands, so I can pummel my legs inside and go into either arm bars or triangles most likely. And in this case, I went into a triangle from the rear, a rear triangle. So there we see the V frame again. Heidi jumps to one side. I connect my right knee and my right elbow, and I go into a leg scissor action. Now, if I recall right, you guys are going to see me do leg scissor a number of times. I'm basically going to drill leg scissors for a few seconds here. So you guys are going to see how Heidi, or actually, let me ask you guys this really quick. So why don't you guys watch for a second and just let me know, what is Heidi doing, an important concept that we've talked about already? We already talked about the importance of this during class today.
Either point the knees away or move around.
That's exactly right, Nick. Good job. So I'm pointing my knees and my legs. Everything's pointing at Heidi. And so Heidi's going to try to switch sides and pass to the other side. It's a great thing for her to do. Now I was still able to get my knee inside, so I was able to go into a leg scissor action again. And then I leg scissor again. And again. All right, guys, now here's another thing. We saw this a lot on Tuesday when I was training with Hayden. I have this cross shin to shin position. Who remembers what one of my favorite attacks is off of this particular position?
You go into Ashi.
Yes, Nick. Good job. Do you remember what I have to do to go into the cross Ashi gourami?
You have to go behind her knee.
Good. With what? Behind her knee, you're excellent. Good job so far. With what part of my body? What has to go behind her knee?
I guess. Is it your left leg?
Yes. Nice job, Nick. Great work. All right. So Ata, I'm going to have to take my right foot here to the inside. If I were to take my left knee behind her knee right now, I'd be giving her a guard pass. So first, my right foot needs to get inside if I can. There it is. Now that my right foot is inside, it's safe for me to take my left knee out as a frame and pummel it in behind her leg. And there's our cross Ashi entry. Great job, Nick. And then obviously I went into another cross out. I went out of cross Ashi and then back into it. Not sure why I did that. Maybe just another rep. Okay, so there we see two other important concepts. One is leg pummeling. We talk about leg pummeling so much, okay, because it's super important. Pay attention to my right foot here. Now I'm going to use my right foot to pummel over her shoulder into a triangle attack. But we also saw another very important mechanical feature of jiu-jitsu, something that gives us a mechanical advantage over our opponent. Can you guys see what it is? mean, there's a few things. There's probably not a wrong answer here, but there is something that I'm looking for. What kind of gripping am I going into?
2-on-1. Elbow.
2-on-1, exactly. 2-on-1 gripping is so mechanically strong. It's taking two of your limbs to fight against just one of your opponent's limbs. Another important feature of 2-on-1 gripping. In fact, I'm going to let you guys see this so you guys can understand why 2-on-1 gripping is so important. And I'm going to use my water bottle here. So if I grip like this, okay, let's say this is a really big man's wrist. I mean, I can hold on to this for a little bit, but I can't hold on to it for an extended period of time typically. Why? Why is this going to be easy to pull out of? Imagine this is a wrist that somebody's going to try to rip free.
Big giant hole on one end.
That's right. Every weakness has a grip. Or I'm sorry, every grip has a weakness. All right, a one-on-one grip, there's always going to be a weakness, and it's always where your fingers and your thumb join. That's the weakness of every grip. When I go into a 2-on-1 grip, where's the weakness? There's not one. Okay, now in this elbow 2-on-1, I'm going to switch back really quick because you guys are going to see I'm not holding the arm like this. Sometimes I will, but not always. And in this case, I'm not. But I want you guys to see the same concept is there, and that the weakness of one grip is covered by the strength of the other grip. Understand the strength of this grip is where my palm is. The weakness is where my finger and thumbs would meet. And that's covered by the strength of my left hand. So there is no weakness. The weakness of one is covered by the strength of the other. But notice I'm gripping her wrist with my right hand and her elbow with my left. Okay. But what do you guys notice about the position of my hands as they relate to one another? They face each other, right? So I'm going to stop the share again. If I were to do a 2-on-1 gripping like so, I don't have the weakness of the grip covered. However, if I do this, you guys see I'm not necessarily hand over hand like I was before, but the weakness of one grip is still covered by the strength of the other. They're just staggered. So if somebody were to try to pull this water bottle toward the computer screen, toward you guys, the strength of my left hand would still cover that and prevent that. If somebody tried to move the water bottle toward my head, the strength of my right hand would cover that. So even though the grips are staggered, the strength of one still covers the weakness of the other. Okay, so now let's go back to the video and I'll explain exactly what's going on here. Okay, so if she tries to pull her arm up, it's going to go into my right hand. The strength of my right hand is going to stop that. If she tries to pull her arm down, the strength of my left hand is going to stop that. Okay, so she's going to have a hard time extending the arm up and away, and she's going to have a hard time retracting the arm down and toward her. So because of that, I have very, very good control of this arm. Okay, I don't have great control of everything else, but great control of that arm because of 2-on-1 gripping. Incredibly important concept. Okay, let's keep trucking on this now. So because I have this 2-on-1 grip, she can't pull the arm away, so she can't make distance. Why can't she come closer to me? I'm managing distance really well right here. I have a grip on the arm so she can't pull away. Why can't she come into me?
You have a foot on her hip?
I have a foot on her hip. So I'm managing distance. I'm controlling how far she is away from me. She can't go further. She can't come closer. I can hold her right where she is with this grip. And now I'm going to be able to pummel my right leg inside and get in. Now, if she were bigger and stronger, if somebody wanted to rip away from me, they could rip away. Like if they wanted to really, everything they got, big explosive rip, they could probably do it. This isn't the strongest form of stopping her from pulling away. But if you got somebody who's maybe a little, slower, a little, maybe they're being more relaxed, this is a good control. So that's the importance of 2-on-1 gripping. And there we saw a knee off the mat, and I had the feet in the inside position. And as you guys know, that leads into the Asha gourami. We covered that in a number of classes in the past. And then I pass it over into cross Ashi. I'm going to ask you guys to think back. I'm almost certain I've covered this before in the online classes. I know I covered it in my academy classes. Do you guys remember what is typically considered the stronger of the Ashi gourami positions? Straight Ashi or cross Ashi?
Cross Ashi.
Excellent job, Nick. Now, for bonus points, there are generally 3 reasons why I favor the cross Ashi over the straight Ashi. Anyone remember what any of those reasons were?
More
More
control.
More control, good. Why? What's our legs are wedges that are around our opponent's legs and hips. What kind of wedges does cross Ashi allow me to use more easily? We talked about the notion of wedges being reinforcing one another and not reinforcing one another. Closed wedges and open wedges. Right? So what is a closed wedge? Or closed wedges, I should say, because there has to be multiple. Think about the name closed, the word closed. What do you think that means? It means the circuit's complete. It means everything is closed off, everything's connected. So in a case of closed wedges, think like a triangle. Okay, like if I triangle my legs, the position of my right leg reinforces the position of my left, and vice versa. As opposed to if you were to try to use your legs or use your arms to pinch around somebody. For instance, let's just say here, if I'm holding somebody like this, we would call this open wedges because my right arm is not anchored by anything. We would call this closed wedges because my left arm anchors my right arm and vice versa. This is stronger because they're anchored. If I'm holding somebody like this is considered open wedges, where if power gets applied onto one of my arms, it can be easily manipulated. It's tough for me to hold my arms in this position if there's force being pushed out at the end of the lever. If I have closed wedges, the same thing doesn't really work. Because now if somebody tries to push this away, my right arm is holding it in place. Okay, so that's the notion between closed wedges and open wedges. So that's one reason I prefer cross Ashi. In cross Ashi, it's easier to set closed wedges around your opponent's legs and hips, as opposed to straight Ashi, which usually results in open wedges. Another reason I prefer cross Ashi has to do with the submissions that are available. What can you tell me about that? In cross Ashi, we have the inside heel hook. The inside heel hook is the stronger of the two. Heel hooks are I would say, the strongest, highest percentage leg lock attacks. From straight Ashi, we have the outside heel hook. From cross Ashi, we have the inside. The inside heel hook hurts more, does more damage, and is easier to secure. The outside heel hook generally doesn't tend to be felt as much by the person receiving it. Generally doesn't do as much damage. People will still fight through like torn LCLs. And it's easier to slip the heel. And then the last reason I like cross ashi instead of straight ashi is because in cross ashi, both legs are in front of me. It becomes very easy for me to control both of my opponent's legs, the near leg with my legs and their far leg with my arms. In straight ashi, one of the legs tends to be behind me, and it's harder to control both legs simultaneously. And if you don't know this, from any ashi gourami position, most of your opponent's defenses and escapes, the strongest defenses and escapes, come from where, Nick?
The upper body.
Not the upper body, the other leg. That's okay. The other leg. Remember, the other leg is, I mean, that's the strongest limb they have. Everyone puts that foot on your butt and they kick off, or they'll stand up and they'll put the foot on the mat and they'll stand up. They'll pummel their leg into the inside to steal inside position. They can do a number of things. But most of your opponent's defense from an ashi gourami will come from their secondary leg, the leg that you're not controlling with your legs. In cross ashi, we can control both of their legs very easily, which means most of their defenses are taken away and they're going to be stuck in that position for a long period of time. Okay. So I believe that's going to, let me go back to the screen share, but I believe we're pretty much winding down to the end of the video here. Oh, yep. In fact, that's it. Okay. So that was the last thing. So some solo drills that I have for you guys that we talked about today are, we have leg pummeling again, and we've done that a number of times already, but I'll do a quick review of that. We have leg scissoring, which I did a number of times, which is incredibly important. I would say leg scissoring is the most important tool you can have for guard retention. We have back heisting, which is when we can turn into our opponent from side control. And in order for me to turn into my opponent from side control, what do I need? We talked about it a couple times now.
Underhook.
Underhook, good job, Nick. And then we have some inversion rolls for you guys to do. So some exercises you guys can do on your own while you're watching TV, while you're hanging out around the house. We have leg pummeling. Again, visualize yourself pummeling your feet over the arms or under the arms. You can do this on your own, just watching TV. You don't need a partner for it. We have seated leg pummeling from a seated position. And we have inverted leg pummeling, where you come up inverted. And we looked at this on Tuesday as well, where I can leg pummel from this inverted position. Circling my legs to the inside position, going both over the arms and under the arms. Another solo drill that I want you guys to work on is leg scissoring. I did this a number of times today in the training, in the video. And I would say this is the most important tool you can have as it relates to guard retention. When your opponent passes one of your legs, bring the other leg back over. So again, I'm here. My opponent maybe points my knees away from them like we talked about. I frame, and then my outside leg kicks up and over, and I put my foot where my hand is. So I go from a hand frame to a foot frame. Now my foot is so much stronger, I can start to push them away and recover guard. So leg scissoring. Knees point away, I frame either one hand or two hands. My other leg comes over, and I recover guard. It is generally easier to frame with a single hand when you're doing that, because I also like to push off my elbow to help me push my hips over. So if I'm here, it's my elbow on the ground here that helps to push me in the other direction. Back heisting, which again is done with an underhook. I'm here, I get my underhook. Now when I back heist, I get up to my side first, and now it's just the action of my legs scissoring from here to here. Okay? Some people think that they need to prop up as they come up, or that they need to lift their hips as they come up. Neither is true. Keep your shoulders and your hips on the mat and just switch your legs. Then you can easily come up to your knees underneath your opponent's body weight into a good athletic position from where you can wrestle. Side inversion rolls. Okay, I think I have this one on here so that I can show how I propped into my side shoulder roll. But this action is going to be me in a seated position, typically like a staggered butterfly guard. So we have a square butterfly guard here and a staggered butterfly guard here. One knee up, one knee down. From here, I'm going to commit my shoulder to the mat. On my right, my bottom foot is going to push my hips off the ground. And now I'm going to tuck my chin to my chest as I roll into my shoulders. And then I can recover and just lower my hips. So that's our side inversion roll. I'm playing guard. Maybe somebody's passing my guard going around toward my left-hand side. I commit my shoulder to the ground. I use my right foot, my bottom foot, to push my hips up. And now I'm going to tuck my chin to my chest as I bring my left shoulder to the mat. I can easily recover guard like so. Done in normal speed, it'll look like this. Just like that. Okay, and then the other drill you guys can do that I have on here is you can come up to a prop using a leg pendulum. So my leg throws to the ground, my core locks up, or my leg is halfway down, so that the momentum and weight of my leg carries my upper body up to a hand prop. Now from a hand prop, we can go back into our side inversion roll, where again, I'm going to tuck my arm in, commit a shoulder to the mat, build myself up off my bottom foot, and recover guard. So done all at once with that one, it'd be my prop and a shoulder roll. Leg pendulum to a hand prop, and then down to a side inversion roll. Okay, these are all good drills you guys can do on your own. I'll recap them again super quick for you all. If you guys want to write them down, we have leg pummeling first, either supine, seated, or inverted. We have leg scissoring, which is where I frame. I come over the top with my far leg, and I recover guard. We have back heisting, which is where I get my underhook. I get on my side, and then I scissor my legs. We have side inversion rolls, where I take a staggered butterfly guard here. I commit a shoulder to the ground. I push off my feet to bring my hips up, down. And then we can combine that side inversion roll with a leg pendulum and a hand prop, where I begin to turn away from my opponent. I realize there's back exposure, so I put my back down to the mat really quick so they don't take my back. Here. Okay, guys, so there's your drills for today. If you guys want to work on those while you're watching Netflix, hanging out, you guys get bored, you want to do something for 10, 15 minutes, you want to move, and you want to do something that's going to get you better at jiu-jitsu, work on these movements. Leg pummeling, leg scissoring, back heisting, side inversion rolls, and hand props to side inversion rolls. Does anybody have any questions on any of those or any questions on today's lesson?
Pretty good. Good breakdown.
All right, thank you so much. So once again, if I'm underneath bottom side control, or if anybody's underneath bottom side, what is the key element that the top person needs to keep the far shoulder pinned? And what does the bottom person need to get their top shoulder off the mat to turn in? That fight's gonna come down to what?
Underhook.
The underhook. It's all about that underhook, okay? Anything else that I wanna touch on today? Leg pummeling is obviously very important. We know that. Now, I think that's going to do it today, guys. All right. Good class. Work on those soul drills. And I will see you guys on Tuesday, where I prepared for you guys a breakdown of one of my rolls with John Castaneda, very strong wrestler, very strong wrestler. He's able to get a few single legs on me, and he's one of the tougher guys up the academy. It'll be a good roll. So make sure you guys are here for that. Otherwise, have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you guys Tuesday.
Thanks, Coach.